Hello and welcome to the Intel Brief. Today's Thursday, the 20th of August. I am your host, Daniel, and today we're going to talk about US debt has crossed $40 trillion, Ukraine has stood up a long-range strike command, and Taiwan has approved a record defense budget. So firstly, US total public debt has crossed $40 trillion on the 18th of August after adding a further trillion in just a few months, and more than doubling since January 2017. Public debt rose 7.8 trillion under Trump's first term, 8.4 under Biden, and then has climbed 3.8 trillion since Trump returned to office in January 2025. The annual deficit is projected to reach 2.1 trillion when the fiscal year ends in 30 September. So what? I think it almost certainly is going to be affected significantly by defense and discretionary spending over the coming decade because, there's a lot going on. The US is involved in a lot of stuff. And I mean, this is kind of like one of the troubles with like the conflict in Iran, right? They almost can't afford it at this point. Like, war is very expensive, especially with the cost of current like munitions for the US military. Like, I don't know, everyone kind of talks about the price of a tomahawk and like other strike materials that the US uses routinely. So any kind of conflict is extremely expensive, as we saw with the first round of conflicts with Iran. So, I think this is only going to go up, and it's something that the US really needs to start thinking about. I think the debt load is likely a slow burn strategic vulnerability, though, that rivals such as China will probably continue to exploit in the information space. It's like interesting stuff that people are pointing at now with the US recently bailing out Japan. Japan is like one of the largest, it is the largest holder of foreign US debt. And there was a worry that as their economy collapsed, they would sell off large amounts of US debt, which would, significantly damage the US economy. So yeah, I think the US is becoming a bit more vulnerable to monetary issues. But I think a near-term financial crisis or fiscal crisis is unlikely while the dollar continues to hold reserve status. But the trajectory is likely to constrain US power in the long run. There's been a lot of talk, recently, and especially around the conflict in Iran, of decoupling away from the US dollar, which has been the status quo since the end of World War II, and something that the US power has kind of hedged along. So it'll be interesting to see if anything there changes and if countries start using the Chinese yuan, for instance, more and more. That could also damage the US. And next, Ukraine has formalized its deep strike effort under a new long-range strike command, giving its drone and missile campaign a dedicated targeting structure for the first time. The 2026 campaign has switched off power in Crimea, struck bridges, transport links, and hunted ships in the Azov and Black Seas. That pressure is turning the peninsula into a resource sink and it's pulling Russian air defense all over the place, including and also naval assets. So what? I mean, the standing up of this command just shows that this is now a settled doctrine. This is something Ukraine is going to continue to do, as, everybody expected. I would say it's their best path to victory at this point. And it's something that they're almost certainly going to continue to do. Like, Russia is clearly suffering under it, so why stop? I think it's also going to turn Crimea into a bit of a resource sink where Russia can't really spread out its air defense enough to protect everything it needs to protect. This is something we've talked about a lot recently. Russia's vast, expanse of land is very hard to defend. So they have to pick and choose where they put their air defenses, and then Ukraine can just strike in the gaps. Yeah. And I think Russia is also likely to struggle to protect both the peninsula and Crimea and its heartlands at once, as you would expect. Lastly, Taiwan's cabinet has approved a 2026 defense budget on the 20th of August that tops 1 trillion new Taiwanese dollars, more than 34 billion US dollars, for the first time under the NATO standard accounting. A further 240 billion new Taiwan dollars special budget funds fighter jets and domestically developed uncrewed systems, or drones. Recruitment also beat its 2025 targets by more than 17%, and retention has climbed up to 87% from 82%. Very positive. So what? The record top line signals deterrence is now fully funded, and almost certainly a message aimed at Beijing that, Taiwan is ready to protect itself. I think the uncrewed systems and fighter line items suggest that Taipei is likely building a Ukraine style asymmetric layer. We've seen how effective it's been in Ukraine, especially at deterring a larger opponent. So it's unsurprising that Taiwan is taking a lot of lessons learnt from Ukraine and trying to implement them themselves. Also, the rising recruitment and retention also makes the country more resilient, not just spending promises. Yeah, I think the retention, it probably also speaks to like how Taiwanese people see the threat from China. I think, most of them now see it as very legitimate and something that could possibly happen in the near to medium term. So yeah, they clearly want to defend themselves, which is good to see. But anyway, that's been the Intel Brief. I've been your host, Daniel, and I'll see you again tomorrow. See you.